Welcome to the Holy Spirit's Curriculum of Joy podcast. My name is Wanaka Oberhuber, and I'm your host. Today, my guest is Julia Day. Hi.
Hi, Wanako.
So wonderful to have you here.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be invited. Um, I love that people want to ask me questions. It's so much
Yes.
easier than trying to write a book.
Well,
If I
that's
could
a
just
way to
have
write a book.
a tape recorder follow me around all day and transcribe it, there'd be an encyclopedia by now. So
Yeah,
So thank you so much for inviting me. Appreciate it.
you're
And
very
thank
welcome.
you. Thank you to your community. I have listened through some of the podcasts and one with you, and I really resonated with just your gentleness and warmth and creativity and dedication, devotion. So I'm very honored to be here.
Thank you, Jewel. So
Yeah.
sweet. Yeah, you are the third person responded, who's coming to the podcast, who responded to the question, do you feel loved from within, with a clear yes?
I do.
I would
I
like
so
to.
do.
So I said, I want to go deeper into this subject and hear more
Mm.
about it with among whoever feels like speaking about it, of the people who said
Yeah.
yes.
Mm. Well, yes, I'm very blessed to say I sit in that love, that joy, that holiness, many, many, many hours a day. And yeah, and when I don't, I still know it's there. I know it's never missing. And I get to join with it and through it be that for others. So as I fall into that depth of wholeness and loveliness, then I'm also um, an extender. You know, I'm extending the sameness to everything I see, everyone I see, all events, all happenings, all perception. Yeah. So, another word for it would be the oneness within, or the Holy Spirit, our wholeness, our purity, our
Yeah.
innocence. Yeah.
Yeah. The podcast is called The Holy Spirit's Curriculum of Joy.
Mm-hmm.
So that fits perfectly into the podcast
Mm-hmm.
title as well.
Joy, that big O in joy, like for me, the O in joy is that all encompassing wholeness, hologram, oneness that's just completely has me, has you, has all of everything, all aspects, and is shining that sameness through that giant, ever extending O in joy. And there we go. That's joy.
Yeah. Now, I'd like to extend the question of, how did you get here?
Uh-huh. Well, I thought you might start that. The other day I was in the bathtub and I thought, oh, I wish Wanako was, well, this is going to sound really funny. I wish Wanako was interviewing me now, because this whole download of what to tell you was happening. And I thought, well, we're 4 days early, so we'll see what happens when the day comes. I really like what I was hearing as the story that came through, though. When I like going underwater in the tub, it's one of the ways I feel that fullness of the wholeness, the Holy Spirit, the holiness. I like being immersed so that my perception is removed and I'm just in listening. So, what I heard that day was to start by telling you that I had a very challenging early life. I came in, I think, with a lot of knowledge from other so-called, even though it's all simultaneous time, other times, other traditions, and I came in very shamanically ready to be this giant presence of God. And I had the most wonderful mother, but she was deeply hurt, frightened, and concerned. She was actually a mystic, but she was trying to be a good Canadian woman in the 1950s, and she was kind of denying her own spirituality and trying to manage children and make them do what they were supposed to do according to the rules. And I did not fit into that category. I was the fourth sibling in my family, and all of us were pretty big personalities. But I was particularly outspoken, and according to my reports of my siblings, I was wild. Like, I was just so extended. And at that time, the way my mom dealt with it was both a lot of, emotional and physical attempts to reprimand me, and drugs to sedate me. So I grew up sort of woozy and reduced, diminished, so that I would fit in. And it caused me to think I wasn't okay, that I wasn't lovable, I wasn't good enough, I was an embarrassment. Everything I did was too big and too embarrassing and too much, and yet I couldn't stop it. I couldn't help myself. So I had a lot of allergies. I had a lot of illness, high fevers. I was quite dyslexic. So the school system didn't really fit for me all that well. I was sick, like throwing up almost every day, often through the night. So I had a dramatic beginning. I'm laughing now. And I absolutely love my mother for having played this reflection to me that said I wasn't okay, because without her, I wouldn't have healed so much. I wouldn't have had these morsels to meet later, and know that nothing can undo the true shining light of who we are. Not, nothing, no attempts can actually diminish us. So you still with me?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Okay, good. So fast forward to about age 7, and I didn't really talk until I was about 5. I sang and I danced and I threw up and I had rashes everywhere. But once I was about age 7, I learned how to write, and I couldn't stop writing because I knew I had to leave a trail of all these things that I knew I had to remember that were really important, that later everything that was happening in my life would make sense. And now that I had language and the ability to hold a pen or pencil, I knew I could begin what I came for. I had always had a series of thoughts that when I would wake up in the morning, I'd remember them. And when I went to bed, I'd remember them. They were about maybe 10 or 12 things. And it was like, don't forget this, don't forget this, never forget, never forget. And I would check in. And one day, I'm not sure how old I was, maybe 6, they weren't there anymore. They were gone, all of them. And I thought at the time, I think, it was as if I'd lost my mission or my purpose. And so I kind of tried to join the world more and make the best of being here. And And so it wasn't very long before, around age 10, um, I, I had a series of wonderful meetings with my inner teacher that set me back into, I think, what I thought I had lost. They happened for a few years. Should I keep going? Are we good?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. They happened for a few years. Would normally happen, sometimes they would happen at night, from my bed, but mainly, and you'll laugh again, they would happen from the toilet seat. I would go upstairs between the first course and dessert with my loud family down below, very exuberant family. Everybody spoke over top of everybody else. Everybody had big opinions, big voices. And I would go upstairs and, from the toilet seat, I think what it is it reminded me of meditation pose from other times, because I was relaxed, I was upright, I wasn't slouching. And from there, I would lift myself straight up out the top of my head, above the tree, the cityscape. This was in a city in Ontario, in Canada, and up past through the atmosphere and then right out into outer space. And similar, if you've read Gary Renard's, when he talks about the in-between life journeys that we take. When I read that in his third book, I thought, oh yeah, this is very familiar. So I would move through the galaxy for a while, and then I came to this realm of the most familiar and beautiful blue, Christ blue. Nisargadatta calls it the absolute, this blue absolute, deep blue, deep, deep, holy indigo, but with openings of turquoise and violet, but mainly blue, and stillness and absolute quiet and no bodiness, just pure mind. These are, the images of it for me, words that I can use to describe. And there was a voice that spoke to me with such love, and settled me, reminded me of my purpose, reminded me I wasn't what I appeared to be, and nothing was as it appeared to be. And this pure holiness was the only thing that was happening. There was safety in everything, and through all that seemed to be. And I would be nurtured and nourished in this realm, this blueness, this ray, and um, and knew the voice was not something outside of me, but came through me. It was deeper than any aspect of my own perception of being an individual I. And then I would go back down, and I would use the sound current, because I could hear my family's voices. And as I would travel back, riding the sound waves, at first it wasn't their voices, but later it became their voices, I saw a lot of sacred geometry. I understood many things about travel, time travel, the duality waves of the making of the universe, all that kind of thing. And then I would land down in my little 10-year-old or 11-year-old skinny body and go back downstairs for dessert. And I knew that my family were just like images, pretending they were these funny humans, and that it was truly much ado about nothing. And I could laugh and love them. And they knew what I knew, but they were just pretending they didn't. Everybody was just in this big pretending game, and just not to take it seriously and not to worry about attempts to manage it or be liked in it. So that happened numerous times. Probably there were maybe 9 very powerful experiences, maybe 3 really powerful experiences, and another 20 where I would just go there for the nurturance. The last time I went, I was about 22, but mainly it wasn't as good because by the time I was 15 or so, I was into smoking pot and boys, and I wasn't as good at joining anymore. I couldn't get the same sense of purity. Things were heavier, more confused, but I still knew that that was the truth and I could call upon it. But this is not the type of experience that you can tell people, because in the time I was growing up, I was a teenager in the 70s, they want to put you in on medication, basically, or it's not normal. And it wasn't normal to have that type of conversation, that type of experience. So I quietly put it aside. I knew it was real for me. I became a poet, an adventurer, and a journalist. And later I worked a lot with slide transparencies and imagery, some film, that type of thing. And then later I became a healer. So that kind of brings us up to what the track of my life. But those were the beginnings. And those experiences made more and more sense. I had a mission that I had to understand why I had those experiences. So I read so many books in my teens and 20s. I got into the I Ching when I was about 13, astrology at the same time, psychology as quickly as I could, many types of psychology, cosmology, mystical poetry. And I was always searching for what the soul was. And I kept getting derailed or detoured. It was perfect at the time, but detoured into Jungian descriptions of the soul. And it was helpful, it was healing, but I knew that wasn't the soul, that they were using the word, but it wasn't the same thing. And I also did a lot of dancing. I danced a great deal, and I think I was very kinesthetic. I never put it together that that was an aspect of healing. Like, I knew it was healing for me, but I never realized that later the same me who danced and the same me who looked at slide transparencies and wrote poetry, that all that came together as a healer later. So I'll stop now. Finally, a period after a very long preamble.
Yeah, wonderfully described.
Thank you. Well, I thought you might resonate because I heard you talk about, I mean, you're a very creative person, and I so appreciate artists who aren't locked in the angst of art, but use it for transmutation into an alchemy into joy.
Yeah, I had to learn that lesson.
Yeah, because yeah.
Because all my spiritual experiences were not spiritual experiences before, right? They were described as art, right? Or as creativity, as imagination.
Yeah.
And I had to transcend that understanding of it to get
Great
where I'm
freedom.
at now.
Whee!
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought there was there's fun parallels to what you were telling too. I'm also the fourth sibling.
Oh, okay, great. Isn't that nice? I mean, it's so busy. You can just tag along. And you learn a lot because you have a view into the culture that's a little ahead. So it made me, I think, a lot older than my years, because I had a lot of access to information that would have been harder to have otherwise. I want to add, in terms of my mother, because I only think it's fair to say, because although she was my largest forgiveness opportunity for many years, she also became a great way shower, because she later overcame a lot of her own suffering and the lineage that had come through her mother's side. And she became a Zen Buddhist nun, twice ordained, and went back to school and did really, really well and got a master's degree in psychology and religion, and gave her life, especially the last 27 years, over entirely to her healing and to mysticism. And so by the time she passed, my grievances just couldn't hold water anymore. I had a friend, I had a sister, and I had someone who showed me it was okay to be unusual.
Wow, that is a transformation.
Oh, it was so good. It was, because it was so easy to make her be my bad guy. And oh my God, she's so not. And my gratitude to her for carrying that reflection for me, because if she hadn't, somebody else would have had to. But it was with her, oh golly, so beautiful. And to say very quickly that her passing was profoundly visual for me. I saw, yeah, with great technicolor detail how we drop the body, and I also saw this amazing emerald sphere of light that came back into the room and smiled at me from the corner, like this giant emerald sphere, like a moon or a sun shining. So not only did she leave her body as a gorgeous upward waterfall, but then, and it took about 10 minutes for her to do that. She was sitting up, Roshi style, when she passed, on purpose. And then once, once she was in her we'll say her in-between life form, or some aspect of it, yeah, she revealed it to me, which was a great gift.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah,
Yeah.
I have so many things I could pick up on. And
Mm-hmm.
I have a few that I will pick up on. So
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I'm sorry. I am an encyclopedia. I can go off all over the place with. This is why I've been trying to write a book forever, and then I think, well, just make it a pamphlet. Make it 50 pamphlets. Do something with this.
yeah.
All this fun, playful, loving, mystical normalcy. Like, it's normal to have um, experiences that proclaim our reality through us, right through us, not sort of as a theoretical thought, but absolutely transcending everything we think we are as a body
Yes.
and other bodies. Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful. So I'll pick
Yeah.
up on one of the things
Sure.
you told us, and that
Yeah.
is you said you came into this world knowing about many different times in which you were experiencing that you say are happening at the same time in reality. And
Mm-hmm.
and you said that that gave you an insight into many, many different cultures.
Mm-hmm.
And you may know or you may not know that I studied social and cultural anthropology. So I'm very
Ooh.
fascinated by that. I would
Oh,
like to
great.
hear more about your insights into the
Yeah.
many different cultures and how that has
Mhm.
informed you in your life.
Sure. Well, the way I know them best, I think I always knew them. I'll give an example. I could not look at a plate of butter on the dining room table. We always had to put something between me and the butter, because if I saw the butter, I would start to cry, and these feelings would come over me. And I never understood why that was. Who could explain that? Later, when I was exposed to slide transparencies of life in the high Canadian Arctic, the Inuit, and also Tibetan lifestyle and Mongolian. In the Arctic, they use seal oil lamps, and in the Himalayas, they use yak oil lamps. And the glow of the lamp was what I was seeing in the butter that made me want to weep and cry. It still brings softness and a sentimental feeling to me. So there were bleed throughs all through my life. I always did really well in history because I could become anyone in a phase of history. I knew what the clothing felt like. I knew what kinds of shoes they had on. I could smell the terrain and the foods. And I just was very open to embodied awareness throughout time. And then as I became the type of healer I am, it's a very embodied form. By embodied, I mean awareness throughout the seeming body. It doesn't mean we're a body. It means we know we're not a body. We're all time. And so I can look out through all time, through all these prisms of awareness throughout all humanity. So, I can look out of my kneecaps at millions and trillions of views that kneecaps think they're having.
Wow. So
Uh-huh.
that shows the way that you can be very open to people who come from different
Yeah,
views and understandings and
yeah.
cultural and ethnic backgrounds.
It's extremely helpful. It doesn't mean that I haven't had to work with my own fears and attack thoughts reflecting back to me. I've done a lot around undoing my fear thoughts, but yes, it's really easy to love in place of fear, and more all the time, because I am my brother. I mean, it's clearly like even on the level of the world, which we dream we're in, I and my brother are one. I am my brother. Yeah. And I am all these bodies. There's a beautiful depiction at the beginning of Gary Renard's second book, Your Immortal Reality, where Arten and Persa become all these bodies that Gary's been, thousands of them. I so can relate to that little few pages there, because I'm all those times through all time, and I'm also through my greater awareness, I'm all of it. Like, so we have a chakra system, and as we go higher above our head, which is also deeper beneath us, and the energy field is just like a larger Russian doll, um, we meet personal lifetimes and then more transpersonal lifetimes as we go higher, and then like all species, and then all humanoid, and then all beyond that. So all this perception that's being dreamed as if it's out there in front of me um, is available when I give myself over for healing. All these timelines are turning to love. They either disappear entirely, or they become light experiences of wholeness and loveliness, or symbols are introduced into them through spirit to help reinterpret the meanings. So when the Course, for instance, is teaching us to forgive, to bless, to offer Christ vision, to reinterpret our perception. This is and the miracle principles tell us that this undoes all time, is undoing all timelines and affecting all time, and removing time periods altogether. I can say through direct experience that's true. And I know it through myself, and also when I'm working with another, whether in person, like with my hands on them, or virtually, it's the same, because through them, it's the same undoing. The matrix literally unwinds through all our perception, because it's not really there.
Yeah, thank you for the answer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, hard to put into words, but as a kinesthetic experience, very, very normal and beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a when you're perceiving with the body, you experience it throughout the body, right? All these energies and
exactly.
how these things open
Yeah,
up or shift or so on. Doesn't
yeah,
mean that you're a body, but you're experiencing these
yeah.
things in a
That's right.
different type of sense than you'd
Well,
usually.
you truly are mind, and just as the Holy Spirit uses what where we think we are and what we think we are to undo it, it's the same as that. Like, we'll use the body to undo the idea of the body. To use what seems like specialness to undo the specialness and reveal the
Mm.
universal. Yeah. And this would be the same within me. Like, if I'm working with different aspects of myself from different moments in time, let's say in just this life, a traumatic experience, the spirit uses the moment of that experience through, let's say, the part of the body that seemed to be affected by it most, to undo it and to bring love, joy, peace, um, sweetness, symbols that are healing to that aspect of my own story. And then that aspect becomes integrated with the love and is no longer apart, no longer feels apart. So whether it's outside of seemingly someone else or myself or me through other timelines, it's all the same.
Wow. So
Mm-hmm.
another thing I'd like to pick up on is you were speaking of being sick or having high fever as a young person, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
how you probably had visions or experiences when you had fever or things in that.
I
Like,
did.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, that was
and
kind of the bonus of being really sick a lot, was that was the fun part.
yeah, and you said how one was trying to um, yeah suppress that
um,
through various medication and so on.
yeah, well, it just was so frightening for my mother to have such a shamanic um, wild child. And I think, I know of the many lives we've all had. A number of mine, like a large number, have been native, um, like indigenous people all over the world, but especially North America. I'm sure that's why I'm here again. And shamanic energy is a very transmutative. It really utilizes the elements. It becomes nature, and I feel like I blasted in as this massive, oh boy, it's hard to put into words, but like, just look at the effusiveness of nature, its colors, its blossoms, its fire, its water, its air. It's just so, these are again symbols, but the presence within them is an area that shamans are very familiar with. So I came in with that very innately, and that's pretty scary to know what to do with in that time period. And I had to fit in and be like other people. So that meant I had to eat the diets that people ate. I had to wear the clothes people wore. I had to go to school, all those things. And it just seems like I must have continually been challenging my mother on every count. I didn't want to wear the clothes. I didn't want to eat that food. I didn't want to go to bed. I was in what would have been called a lot of imagination all the time. And so I was apparently given phenobarbital from about 6 months of age. It's a heavy sedative for seizures. It's a seizure medication. But I don't think I was having seizures per se. I think I was just had so much dynamic energy moving through me. Now, I say dynamic, and yet the truth is the stillness. It's not the dynamic. It reveals the stillness that is not, that's unchanged and unchanging. But it was probably pretty hard for her to know what to do with me. And she also had projections onto me that I was probably mentally challenged. When for one thing, I didn't talk till I was in school, and even when I did talk, no one knew what I was saying. And I can understand that because I can speak a lot of other languages pretty easily. I can speak in tongues. I can, there are different languages that are accessible. And I'm sure even when my son was born, he spoke with a Scottish accent for a long time when he was little. We're nowhere near Scotland. So I don't know where I was going with all of that, but trying to fit me into a normal world was probably quite frightening to her.
Yeah, I was thinking when I asked you this question, I was thinking of how when I had high fever, one was
Uh-huh.
always saying I was hallucinating and
Uh-huh.
and they were trying to stop that from happening. So,
Oh, I'm so sorry.
so they were using homeopathy, and I was surprised. And I'm
Oh,
to this
great.
day, I'm surprised that a homeopathic doctor would think that I
Uh-huh.
was hallucinating and that that was
Right.
something bad.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. I would have loved some homeopathics back then, but
Yeah, but I was very
Mhm.
I'm really I've discovered that that can't have been that doesn't make sense, that interpretation, that it was a
Well,
hallucination. It was an
yeah.
actual experience that was real.
Yes. Yes. Would you like to say anything about that? Would you like to share?
That's one of the topics that we also have in common, because you were speaking of shamanism, and
Hmm.
I when I was older, at some point I got a hold of a book on shamanism
Uh-huh.
that confirmed to me that I was not imagining things all the time, but it was
Right.
actually that it had meaning, that it was
Yes.
real, had a
Oh.
reality of its own.
Hmm.
And that's one of the main factors that helped me open up.
Yeah.
So I can relate to shamanism
Oh.
as a very powerful way to open
Hmm.
up.
Deep honoring to you, my shaman brother. Deep,
Mhm.
deep honoring. Yeah. Of the knowledge that you knew and um, and was still informing you.
Yeah,
Yeah. Despite appearances.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That
So,
I when I sought, verification for what I knew to be true. Um, I I was a Taoist for a long time. I became a Buddhist, and um, eventually, I found that the voice that had been training me and talking to me in my journals all my life, and helping me, and had been in the beautiful blue in the absolute. I had a direct experience that blew my mind when Jesus revealed himself to be that teacher. And I was at the time enrolled in some esoteric mystery schools. This is in the 1990s. And we really learned to work from what we called at the time Christ consciousness, and to always work from the highest high through the deepest deep. And what I found that all the shamanistic work, a lot of it got softer through working directly through the Christ, what we called the Christ then. And it lost some of the chaos that was fueling it, because it's still that paradigm within me anyway still believed in duality. It still had beliefs about right and wrong and attack, basically. And so learning to work from beyond it became like understanding the crucifixion, understanding that nothing of this world can harm me. That's in the shamanic awareness. But I feel like I took it further in this life, this 20th, 21st century life, to total freedom, like not getting caught anywhere along the way, and knowing that I can stand in any storm and be safe. And I didn't grow up with that knowledge. I was constantly afraid that I would be harmed and hurt. I had a very reckless nervous system, very chaotic, afraid to anchor, skittish. And I had a fair bit of, there'd been quite a bit of violence in my upbringing. And because my mom was so upset, and she had her own unhealed stories at that time. So her spankings were often, at times daily, and very animated, very big. And I feel like it was sort of my shaman against her shaman sometimes. We were throwing lightning bolts at each other. and so working later, finding the teachings of the Christ, the heart of oneness, the holiness of all that is, undid those dualistic, chaotic, frightening, terrifying, vengeful, painful realms through all time, through me. And again, I bow to my mom for helping bring my awareness to them so that I could therefore undo them.
Wow, very powerful.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we thank my teacher, our teacher.
Yeah, another
Yeah.
question I feel I need to ask is, when did A Course in Miracles appear in your life?
Yeah. Well, I always did a big detour around it because so I'll start with my direct recognition of Jesus. I was so far from Christianity. Now, I did always sing, and I sang in many churches, especially, and even then I was sang in church choir. I sang in choirs all through my life. I love singing. And so I liked the Jesus of music. I loved the Jesus of music, but I think it was partly because it resonated with other time periods, and I could feel my devotion through other realms of time. It was something that I loved. I didn't like sermons. It never made sense what they were saying. I never could get it. I wanted to be confirmed, and I would ask the same questions over and over again, and I thought I was stupid because I couldn't understand what they were saying. So I never had any attraction to Jesus consciously. I made a lot of bad jokes about him. And then I was at a energy mastery. It was an energy mastery school, basic training. I think it was 7 days at the Omega Institute in Upper New York State, and actually near Woodstock. And the short story is that I hired someone, one of the assistants, at a very powerful week for many, many, many reasons. Very undoing, very wide opening, very transcendent, very clairvoyant, powerful time. But I had heard that people who go to this course should make sure they get a soul merge, which is so funny to me now. It's like ordering a milkshake. But a soul merge is a downloading of a larger, deeper aspect of our being, of our light being through our seeming body. So I paid $100 US to one of the teachers. I didn't get to choose which one. And I got an Italian fellow who was a bouncer at a bar in New York City. And his name was Barney. And I went to his cabin, gave him my $100, and asked for my soul merge, which sounds so funny to me now. So he sat me on a chair, and he sat in a chair across from me. And he said, okay, we're going to call him Jesus. And I was a Buddhist at the time. And I thought, Jesus, oh my God, oh my God, he's Italian, I didn't realize I've got the Catholic here. Oh, well, I'm here and this is who I've got, so I'll go with him. And he said, so we're going to sing him in. I'm like, oh, good. I love singing. I can do that. So he sang and he asked me to sing with him. Jesus Christ, Jesus Christ. So I was singing. About a minute and a half later, the whole room just was trembling. And I couldn't see the room anymore. All I could see was this golden ladder that came down through the top of my head and into my inner awareness. But this ladder dropped down through my crown chakra. And I was pretty frightened. And Bonnie said, well, climb it. If a ladder comes, climb it. And I said, I can't climb it. And I was very anxious. He said, why not? I said, because I'm not worthy. He said, oh, that's not unworthiness. That's your humility. That's beautiful. Somehow I accepted that. And I climbed only like one rung. And so if you do this with your hand, imagine one rung and now pull it down to kind of your chest level. And so now your head is poking up through where your where what used to be the top is now, you're now like 2 feet higher, but you haven't it's hard to put words to. So anyway, and then suddenly I was in the equivalent of the Sistine Chapel, ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. There were angels. There were all these Christian figures like swimming in the cosmos. There were choirs, and there was Jesus and Mary and others, Abraham, Moses, Elijah. Oh my God, it was so soft and gentle and warm and soothing and comforting. And part of me was incredulous because I didn't believe in them. And here they all were. Obviously, they were real, and I was among them. And then I had my head in his lap. He was stroking my head. Kind of his lap and his heart were the same thing, but I had my head in his chest, sort of, and he was stroking me. And I don't know what happened, but then Barney had a shower and was standing in front of me, and he had 2 shirts, a white one and a blue one, and he was going on a date. And he said, which shirt should I wear? And I said the one I liked best. And then he sort of, like, after he had the shirt on, he sort of kind of just got me outside and put me on a bench outside his cabin and went off for his date. And I lay on this bench for about 3 hours in absolute bliss and cosmic wonder and thrill. And it changed my whole life from then on, because Jesus was the same teacher who'd been there all along. The vibration was exactly the same as the teacher in my mind all my life, and who had been carrying me all along and giving me such wise advice when I would write in my journals. And here he was Jesus. So so I joined another healing school with a woman. She came to our town, and she had been in this other school I was interested in that I did some work with. But she came to our town, and she came to a little bookstore, and there were only maybe 10 of us in it. And she was wearing wild leopard print outfit. She didn't look like she would be my teacher. Um, and then she started singing Jesus. She said, Jesus is singing through me. He wants you to hear his voice. And she sang the most beautiful, beautiful, unbelievable Aramaic, spontaneous singing. And she really didn't give much of a teaching that night. It all just became song. She said later he hadn't come through her for I think 3 years. She didn't know if he ever would again, and he did that night. I never realized that he was calling me to come to her school, because I didn't think I would had that interest. But it came through in other ways to go and register. And I did. I registered for a 3-year school. I paid the whole thing up front before I even set foot in the door. I sold the business I was in, um, uh, and put all my money. I was a single mom at the time. I had an infant child, and I just knew I was going to do this. So, I mean, it makes no sense now to look back on the events that brought me to the wholeness of my path. But everything does conspire for good. Abundance shows up when we need it in exactly the way we need it. And I ended up at her school, and she was a phenomenal channel for Jesus. And he began teaching pure non-duality through her immediately. He taught what would be a very easy to learn form of forgiveness. She wasn't interested in A Course in Miracles because she had a direct channel with him. But I realized much later that he was giving exactly the same teaching. And so I stayed at that school. I became a teacher of that tradition, which was sort of based on a mixture of things, but somewhat on theosophy and embodied initiation practices through Alice Bailey's material, combined with Barbara Ann Brennan, Hands of Light, and other subpersonality work and shamanic work and all kinds of cool mystery stuff. So, so I knew the non-dual teaching was the biggest reason I was there, because I knew it was answering everything that I already knew. It was confirming, and Jesus was now within me, teaching me directly that there is no love but God's, and nothing else is real, and the hologram of oneness is all that is, and that the world we see, and I already knew this because he showed me so long ago, that the world I see is not does not actually exist, and there's just light and light and light and more light everywhere always, and this benevolence and this radiance and these resources of wholeness, ever present, ready to meet us and heal our minds, no matter where or what we think we're viewing. And I avoided A Course in Miracles because it looked very thick and conservative and conventional, and I'd look in it, and there were even more Christian words for me to overcome in there. And although I became a minister, I did make peace with some Christian words, but part of becoming a minister, I had to divine the Bible, and wherever I would open the Bible, it would give me a ridiculous passage that didn't speak to me at all. And I understood that the Bible wasn't my book, but that I could be a minister anyway without using the Bible, knowing that I had Jesus within me. And so in about 2002, 2001, I had learned a lot. I'm also a craniosacral therapist. So I'd had a lot of training, good training, really good training. But he showed up in my sessions telling me not to do anything that he didn't initiate. And it wasn't always him. Like sometimes it would be other masters would show up for specific purposes that were helpful, or in ways that were helpful for whoever I was with. But Jesus was never not there. He was omnipresent, always. But it was he directly who was saying, for one thing, never teach anything you haven't had direct experience of. Don't parrot anything you've heard from it, even if it seems to make sense. So I stopped. I was teaching at that point. I stopped teaching for a couple of years, and he also said, "Don't say anything, don't do anything until you're prompted." So I basically had learned some fabulous skills that I knew worked really well, but I wasn't doing them anymore. I only went as guided. Follow me. And then I'd hear myself ask a question. I just blessed, I just blessed, and I stayed in the truth of oneness, and that nothing unreal exists. These are basic tenets of A Course in Miracles, but I didn't know it through the Course yet. And to see my brother as myself, to see the Christ in all that occurred, and know it as myself. And so the paradigms that I'd been given up until then didn't make sense with what he was telling me directly, like the outer reasons, manifesting, God creating the world because he wanted to experience opposites. All that stuff just was like, that can't be right. That can't be true. It doesn't make sense. And I'm not going to engage it. I'm not going to parrot it. I'm not going to pretend anymore that it has any meaning for me. So it was from there that around the time when Gary Renard's Disappearance of the Universe was first published, a strange woman who used to say, I shouldn't call her strange because she was wonderful, but this is back in the days of email when someone would send out a lot of New Age material all the time. And she sent hundreds of emails with everything, but suddenly an email came through that said this book, The Disappearance of the Universe, was a game changer for A Course in Miracles. And it just lit up. I had to have that book. And I knew it. I postponed it for a year and a half, but I had it right in the center of my desktop, knowing that when I got the right moment, I would order it. I was in a love affair at the time, and I can see why I had to wait till that affair ended. And just around the time it did, I got the yes, now read this. And that was the game changer there, because suddenly I was introduced to a paradigm where I didn't have to bother anymore with all this halfway stuff, with all this relative non-duality, that I could go straight to what he'd been showing me all along. So from there, I practiced the Course, made peace with the language that I had difficulty with before, and it happened fast for me. I couldn't wait to get through it so that I could start teaching it. I had to wait, and I immersed myself in that time in the vocabulary so that I would understand what the words meant and could undo my dualistic interpretations of the words. And there was just such a freeing feeling of celebration that I no longer had to pretend to be halfway. Now, that said, I still meet people where they're at. I meet them within the belief system that they're comfortable with. I don't push mine on them. I use secular language a lot. I'm not here to radicalize anybody who's not resonating. And if they are resonating, it's not me who's supporting them, it's our oneness. So again, I just follow. I traveled to Nepal once, and I went trekking in Nepal, and the donkeys just follow. They're the most beautiful symbol for doing what they're told. They just follow. They're so beautiful. They're so noble and loyal and devoted. And so I just be a good donkey and follow. And spirit is so creative. Like such amazing things happen. Talk about the daily miracle, the moment to moment miracle of the holy instant, and how people get the depth of peace that they crave and that they think they've been missing. It's right here within us. So I'm very much used as a vehicle for people to fall into that peace. And my training with the nervous system combined with esoteric healing, combined with the course and course principles, bring people very deeply into that wholeness in the mind. And a lot of people just suck it up for a long time. They just drink of it. They're so starved. They just drink, drink, drink. And as they do, their nervous system softens, 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 and everything unwinds. Timelines disappear, stories, all the fear that binds the world, all the ways that we collude with our attacked thoughts and sickness and death and bodies, all these seductions soften and disappear.
Oh, so I see there's a lot of things that resonate with me that you're
Mm-hmm.
telling me about,
Mm.
including the love of singing. So,
Yeah.
so I think we could sing a few tones here before we open the floor for
Oh,
questions.
great. All right. Well, you start.
And let's sing our books into existence, huh?
Ah, the book, the unwritten book. Yes. Well,
Yeah,
that's
we
a
all
beautiful.
have those unwritten books in us, all of the people here. So
Yeah. Oh,
let's
that's
sing them into
beautiful.
existence.
Singing. I'll follow you.
Welcome the books within you, let them come out to play.
Bring
Welcome them,
them to me in the easiest
welcome,
way. Bring
easy
joy,
now.
happiness, and gentle ease. Bring it in
And
the easiest way
let
and the
them
right
be
timing.
published. Let them reach everyone so they can
Ah,
benefit from these books we write.
find
Welcome.
ourselves and allow the greatest good be done through us. Now,
Allow the voice to speak of love,
mm,
sharing who we are with everyone.
mm,
Thank
yes,
you.
there
Thank
are
you.
timelines where we've written our books with ease and joy, natural and free, no thinking, no trying, no worrying, no scarcity. Time opens up,
And we
revealing
are
our finished.
here. And
It's
we welcome
already
this
done.
truth.
And it's already done.
Yes, indeed.
My prayer is often if it's the most beneficial timeline, so let it be, and
Yes.
whatever that timing and timeline is, I'm open. I'm taking August off to write. I'm doing my attempts to create the space, and
Wonderful.
it has to be easy.
Anyways, I immediately spotted the writer in you when I read your homepage. So
Uh-huh.
poetic, so
Thank
beautiful.
you. Well, he's been
So,
writing through me forever, so
yeah, he's
thank
writing
you.
through me as well. So,
Oh, beautiful. Yeah, makes it so easy.
yeah, we need
Yeah.
to open up more to it, obviously. There's
Hmm.
more coming.
Yay.
Yes. So, I'm
Thank
welcoming questions now. Whoever would like to ask a question is welcome to now. Okay, I think we've baffled you all. And we will continue.
I
Yeah.
teach Course in Miracles groups. One I've been teaching. Well, we've spent so much time together, like hundreds of days in retreat, and every Friday for 11, going on 12 years. But I started another new group during COVID, a Zoom group, and it's always that I always say, any questions, and nobody says anything. Any comments? Would anybody like to check in? They're only now, it's 9 months in now, and they're starting to check in a little, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's so beautiful to feel this flow of energy, this
Mm,
open-mindedness that I feel from you.
mhm.
And I
Yeah.
felt it before we had the conversation. I knew this was coming. I had to
Hmm.
open up a lot myself,
Oh.
expand
Mm.
and and allow things to come up that I had been avoiding a while.
Uh-huh. Yes.
Just to prepare me to talk with you. So
Oh, you're so
it's,
sweet. I'm really very down to earth and simple, but um, but I'm a little strange. So, but I'm very normal also. I do very normal things. I'm not, if you saw me on the street, you wouldn't think I was who I am. I camouflage a lot, but not out of fear, but just, it's like Art and Persa say, we like to blend in wherever we go.
wow. Well,
Yeah.
we're all doing very usual things, right?
We
there's,
are.
there's no way
Thank you.
to deny that. Oh, here comes the
Hello.
first comment and question. Go ahead,
Hi.
Elena.
Yeah. Hi. It's me,
Hi.
Elena. Hi, Jibel.
Hi, Eliana.
I saw amazing to. Hi. It's
Hi.
so was so interesting your story,
Uh-huh.
and it's was so amazing to listen, and
Mm.
just like and it helped me process to myself and helped me to understand myself that your story is just like it's
Ah.
so touchable and
Oh.
it's so it's kind of like kind of I listen to you and kind of process it and understanding better myself, my childhood. It's kind of very
Oh.
touchable story,
I'm so
and
grateful. Do you
because
want?
it's some kind of that. Mhm.
Yeah, I'm so grateful that it speaks to you and that your inner children are saying, yes, me too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yes, me too.
Yes,
It's
me too.
it's I don't
Mm.
know. It's just amazing because I am very glad that not only me that I feel that I'm strange, like or not
Yeah.
normal or something.
Yes. Oh, it's so
Because
painful.
my strangeness is so bugging me, like like is it
Oh,
I'm
darling.
strange one or
Yeah. No, you're perfect and you matter and you're needed and you're seen and honored and respected. You matter. You matter.
oh yeah.
Mhm.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yes. Thank you for shining so
It's
brightly,
from
Eliana.
universe.
Thank you. Yeah.
Oh, thank you, you too.
A deep
Thank you.
bow.
Yeah, thank you for your story.
Mm.
It's
Thank
wonderful, beautiful.
you. Yeah. Well, I'm very grateful to how the spirit has unwound my stories and provided me with the truth. Because, like I say, there was a lot there was a lot of ground that needed to be covered, and continues, uh, to remind me constantly of how full I am, how resplendent the Christ through me, through all of us is. And even that, remember, we're witnessing this, we're perceiving these stories that we think are us, but we're not actually in them. They're movies, they're sensory movies that we think we're in. But the hallucinating mind that's imagining them is what's healing every time we choose to trust in place of fear, and choose to trust in place of judge. And this path of the crucifixion, this being able to stand in the world and know that nothing in the world can hurt me, even if my body is trembling, even if I am afraid that that hell is right happening, that my wholeness and the truth of me is still the truth of me. And so the body story, identity, seems to go through a lot of strange undoings, shaking, sometimes fevers, sometimes sleeping, crying, and that's all part of the content that's healing. Undoing. Imagine if we're undoing all separation through all time. We're undoing all these moments in this one holy instant. We're undoing all moments of time that similarly vibrate or resonate with a theme that we're experiencing. We can learn to just let our bodies do whatever they do, but not be not be responsible for their healing. Sleep, have baths, eat the right foods, do whatever makes you feel better, get an operation, all those things. But we are safe as we're healing all these stories of time. We are so safe, so loved, so illuminated. I don't know why I went off on that tangent right then, but it's what wanted to talk. As we step back, we're so out in the horizontal all the time. We need to step back into the verticality. From behind us, we know we're not out in the story, but we're so fixated on making meaning out of the story. And that's why we're so afraid. When we step back and rest in God with ourselves, then just allow the normal, natural purification of our reality to set free all these defended, seemingly isolated worries and what ifs and uh-ohs and my badness is coming to get me now because I don't deserve this love. But here is this love. It's still here. It can't leave. It can't go anywhere. It can't be undone. And it is God is. It is the isness of this pure stillness, unchanged and infinitely present. And this knowing that I never left my source. I'm dreaming a dream and its content is not true. There is no void. There is no me looking out, imagining that there isn't the truth still shining through me and through my perception. And through every teeny tiny little aspect of everything, the same light shining. Yes. My sameness, our sameness.
Yeah, we are all one, and we are
one.
All equal.
Yeah.
And to actually see that is so challenging at many times when we're not there at that moment.
There's that choice.
How did you get there, Jewel?
Well, the choice to bless is always present. That really forgiveness really has, I think, about 3 forms. Christ vision, seeing the light of truth in my brother or in an event. or in some aspect of my own being. Blessing, saying, you are, honoring, making a statement of fact of oneness and holiness and innocence. And if I can't manage that, then just saying, whoa, spirit, heal my mind, help, just the call. And so I've met my own monsters. Boy, have I met my monsters. And the way all monsters heal is the same, through seeing the light of Christ in them. You are one with your own divine Christ, light, nature, truth, reality. You are one in source along with me. You are perfect. You're healed. You're holy. You're forgiven. You are as God created you. You've done nothing wrong. I see the light of Christ in you, and I give you to the Christ you are. That's how you heal anything. Anything, everything. All the senses, all the perceptions. And so I've said those prayers to things seemingly outside of me, and I've said those prayers throughout all time and space within me. And so I also receive them. I am, the resurrection and the light. I am the holy instant of freedom, of redemption, of joy extending forever. So I am the aspect that's healing and feels that lifting. But if we listen to the ego tells us that the bad guy is something else separate, and to get away from it, to defend against it. But the simple act of blessing it and choosing to see it truly, if you practice that, you will have direct experience of the miracle over and over again. The power of choice, the power of decision, the desire to, rather than attack and defend, to surrender, to place this image, whatever it is, in light, and watch it dissolve and disappear, and tell it who it really is, will bring these experiences into direct awareness.
Yeah, well put. I think another statement that I also love making is that we are fully honored and fully appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
That's a statement you were telling Elena, but I feel it's true for everyone.
Yes, always. And that's true of
Always.
the rapist, the cheat, the crazy one, the addict, the dishonest one, the crazy psychotic one, especially the ones we want to fear and destroy.
Yeah, it's true for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Even the ones that we are jealous of.
Yes. Oh, that's a good one. In time, we have to heal all our stories. And I didn't realize I had so much jealousy and competition in me, but I had 5 different women appear in my life, one after the other, after the other, after the other, and they all kind of looked like me. And I got to practice on each one in succession. Each one was easier. Each one was simpler as I moved through deeper and deeper my layers of owning my own jealousy and competition and seeing my sister as myself. And truly the same with, it's not happening now, but in the past when I've been involved with men and there's another woman involved, that truly loving my sister as myself, not having possessive thoughts about another person. Undoing the desire, that the scarcity thought that creates the special love bargains that want to make someone else less than. Knowing that if I think that about another, no matter who they are, that's the direct message to me, and I'm making the density of the dream real. And I can do that for a while, but if I can the thing to do if I'm indulging is to step back and witness the part of me that wants to indulge that fallacy and meet it in love. Because that ego aspect of me, that defense, is terrified. And actually, if I tell it that it too is wholly honored and respected and held and not judged and free and rest, and then I can meet also the projection onto, let's say, a third party in a relationship and say, you are my sister. You know, I love you and I want what's best for all. I don't know the greatest, highest good, but the gifts of God through you are so valuable. And I am one in our beautiful, extraordinary, shining light. And I want you to shine. So there's just some practical applications in situations that are typical in our lives.
Yeah, there's many.
There's so many.
There's jealousy. There's thinking someone is better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wanting someone to do something that I think they should be doing, or not wanting to do something that I'm doing that I think I shouldn't be doing and someone else should be doing. There's so many.
It's endless, isn't it? And yet,
yes.
you know, and I'll say for myself, there were some things I just knew I wasn't ready to forgive yet. You know, I didn't have enough, it wasn't the right time for me, but I could watch them and I could see, I could learn from watching the trouble I was causing myself. You know, so in other words, I could be kind even to the part of me that was reckless and ridiculous and hold her.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then in time, I knew, you know, because that is undoing it at levels I can't see just through being compassionate. And then a time would come when I was really ready for that. So it's like honoring the right timing for everything. And a small example would be, I was really good at holding the space, holding in sessions with clients in my office. You know, I could really do it. And then could I do it on the walk home? Could I do it in the store? Could I do it with my family? I lived with my father for 11 years. Could I do it with my father when we were, you know, having a problem? Could I do it now in community? So if I tried to do it or set myself up for doing it everywhere, I would have been overwhelmed. But I knew that I was on that the plan was in place for my healing, and that in my timing and right readiness, I would get there with all of it. And sometimes I knew I wasn't there yet.
Yeah,
And I would look
wonderful.
I would make a list of people who were forgiveness opportunities and keep kind of slowly working along and notice, like, over years, someone who used to be like a 90%, you know, like I've only forgiven them, let's say 50%. Later they'd be at 90%. And then later I'd be like, was I mad at them? You know, that's gone now. But it took time. And when I said that people often just need to be nourished and rest in God, so much is undoing then, and timelines or stories, grievances, hatreds, traumas that they can't see yet, and they shouldn't see yet because they're not ready. It doesn't mean they're not healing. Just simply through the resting in God, all the density in those hidden deep tensions are softening and learning to trust more. And then in right timing, when the awareness does meet them, they're much softer and easier by then.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, the mind is vertical, it's not horizontal. And so that's why the holy instant works so beautifully, because this thought now is truly undoing through all time, because all time is now. And so whatever my thought is, if I can't, let's say, forgive, my brother-in-law or my neighbor or my boss, I can forgive the neighbor's cat. I can forgive, something else similar. I can forgive somebody who reminds me of them. I can work up to it. That is healing it. Years ago, before I got into this type of healing, when I was a Buddhist, I used to do meditation retreats, 10-day silent retreats. And the first one I ever signed up for, I didn't realize it was going to be a metta retreat, which is loving kindness, extending loving kindness to others over 10 days. So that was a surprise, but it totally makes sense because extending loving kindness is very similar to forgiveness. And we started with first 2.5 days just sending it to ourself. You are loved, you are healed, you are whole. May you live with ease, may you live in joy, whatever. A simple statement of blessing. And then we would move on kind of day 3, the end of day 3, to someone we respect, a mentor, someone we like, and easy to see the goodness in. And we would practice that for a couple of days. Then we moved to someone we didn't really know, but we kind of knew existed, a neighbor or the parking lot operator or the grocery store clerk. And we extended the same blessing and of truth and oneness to them. And then near the end, probably around the end of day 7, we started working on our enemy and extending the same blessing to them for just over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And the power of leading up to it that way, not biting off the enemy right away, but beginning in the realms of ease and gentleness where fear is not overwhelming, and starting with ourself, because it's like putting on your mask first in the airplane. you have to start with you, and then as you start to feel it, you can start to extend it, and then ultimately it includes everyone and everything and all time, all characters on the stage.
Yeah, to bless the whole world and wish upon everything that you would ever want for the most beloved or whatever, right? Yourself
Yes,
as well,
exactly
but
that.
also the most beloved. That is an exercise that I am really getting into learning about right now.
So both the one you want to have the blessings for the most and the one you want to have the blessings the least.
Actually, everyone, right? To
Yeah.
wish everyone everything.
Yeah.
Because, in A Course in Miracles, it says everyone has everything because we all are one and we all have it all. So to recognize this truth, I need to actually allow it in my mind that is something that I want for everyone. And I actually can see in everyone having it.
Yes. Yeah.
And with joy, and I do feel the resistance coming up. There's a lot of resistance, but I know it's right.
Yeah, it
It's
is right.
true.
So really lovely to set aside some time, really call on Jesus, Holy Spirit, to hold this teaching for you and to show you. Show me, guide me, teach me, show me really directly this teaching. Yeah, like really mentor me, walk me through.
Yes, amen.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, and we're all a work in progress at that. When we've completed that, I'm pretty sure that we won't be doing more incarnations unless there's still a little more and we can come in and be a great help. I'm often aware that, and I love knowing this, that it's not like we become enlightened in the future. We've already attained that awareness, but we're just not in touch with that lifetime. we're not. So sometimes, like with clients, when I'm blessing, I'm aware that the aspect of them that I'm blessing and seeing the truth in isn't really ready to accept it in the form that they seem to be in now, but it is delivered to them through many other moments of time where they are in receptivity. And then I'm able to see them as their own ascended self, as the truth of who they really are. And whether that looks like that happens in 3,000 years from now or 600 years ago, it doesn't matter. It's all the same.
Wow, that's a good advice.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah.
To help me on in that direction.
It's so helpful. Well, to see the transpersonal, to see the whole picture, because that's the picture the Holy Spirit has. It's working through all time. So much simpler than trying to work through what appears to be right now. Because it is all right now. So the symbols are much richer. You can open it up, as you said, with your I don't know if I can say it right, but like multicultural, anthropological, whatever you said you studied. You can open it up that way, and it's very rich and easy.
Yeah.
Maybe the reason we hate someone is because they threw us off a wall in the 12th century. So if I allow whatever imagery arises and the loving light of oneness to encompass, dissolve, embrace stories of people on walls, and fighting, and all the upset of perceived loss, then I'll just go with that. I'll go with what appears in my imagination, knowing that for some reason that image dropped in and I can work with it. And then I realize I don't hate them so much suddenly, because they're not who I'm thinking they are. They're the one who stole my child, or, shot my father or whatever. And so I love them. I see my brother in all the faces they've ever been and all the hands and toes they've ever seemed to have. And I love them as I love myself, as God loves us.
Yeah, it's so beautiful.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yes. Go big.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I could go on speaking with you for hours, I think.
Yeah.
But I would like to come to an end. We can of the podcast recording.
Yeah. Thank you. It's been my pleasure.
I'd like to thank you so much for being here and sharing your wisdom and your insights with us, so that we can all experience them in ourselves as we open up to them.
Yeah.
And we can share ours, because it opens our minds and our hearts to share it, ours as well. Yeah. Because we all have it to share.
We all have it to share. Absolutely.
Yeah,
all of us. Yeah.
Such before wisdom. We end, would you please tell the listeners where one can reach you if one wants to reach you?
Oh, sure. Well, in terms of the universe in this life, I live on Vancouver Island in Canada, in British Columbia, in a city called Victoria. But I do have clients all over the world who I join with. So I love COVID because it brought even more. Yay. And I have a website, www.juliaday.ca. And people often call me Jewel, but juliaday.ca.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
So,
well,
please spread the word about the podcast so that more and more people get to know it.
Yeah, I love that you're doing that. I love that you're organized, and you know that this is a gift of God through you, that you're making these podcasts possible. So Very
Yeah.
grateful. And I will spread it. And now I'll have something that I can share with people that's really easy. I didn't have
It's
to write a book.
exactly, and it's on so many podcast platforms. When you go
Yay.
to the page of the podcast, you can choose which platform to listen to it on. So it's really
Beautiful.
easy.
Yeah,
Okay,
fantastic.
so
What a time to be alive. Thank you so much, Monaco, and many blessings
thank
to
you so much.
anyone, everywhere, always.